You've driven past an American big rig 1,000 times. That long nose stretching out in front, the cab sitting back behind what looks like the hood of a very large car. You probably don't think about it. It just looks like a big truck. But if you've ever seen a European truck on a travel documentary, a road trip video, a photo from anywhere in Europe, you noticed immediately that it looks completely different. Flat front, no hood, driver sitting right at the tip of the machine, staring out from what looks like the front of a city bus. Same roads, same job, same cargo, completely different shape. Most people assume it's cultural. Americans like big things. Europeans prefer efficiency. It's just a style difference, the kind of thing that varies country to country, like car design or architecture. That's not the reason. Not even close. The real answer involves a tape measure, a federal law passed in 1982, and a single regulatory decision that reshaped every truck on every American highway within a decade. By the end of this video, you'll understand why that long hood wasn't designed by an engineer making an aesthetic choice. It was designed by a law. And the difference between an American truck and a European truck isn't about what anyone prefers. It's about where someone decided to put the end of a tape measure and what they decided not to count. Let's start with what everyone gets wrong. The first thing most people reach for is the engineering explanation. And here's the thing, it is not wrong. It is just incomplete. Conventional trucks, the American long-nose design, are genuinely better in several real ways. The engine sits out front, which means a mechanic can service it by opening the hood, the same as any pickup truck. No special equipment, no hydraulic cab tilting system, just a hood latch and a wrench. The cab sits further back from the front axle, which absorbs road vibration before it reaches the driver. That matters when you are covering 500 miles in a shift. There is more room behind the engine for a full sleeper compartment, which means more insulation, more living space, a more tolerable existence for someone spending weeks at a time behind the wheel. And at highway speeds that define American long-haul trucking, 65, 70, and sometimes 75 miles an hour, an aerodynamic nose cuts through air resistance in a way a flat front simply cannot match. These are not trivial advantages. Long-nose conventional trucks genuinely suit American conditions, so it is tempting to stop there. The design won because it works. Here is where that explanation falls apart. European truck drivers have the same needs. They spend just as many hours on the road. They have the same desire for a comfortable cab. They deal with the same mechanical realities. Volvo, Scania, DAF, and Mercedes-Benz, four of the world's most sophisticated truck manufacturers, are all European and all make flat front designs as their universal standard. If the conventional long-nose design is simply superior, why do European engineers not share that conclusion? And there is something stranger. American trucks did not always look like this. Go back to 1975 and you would find cab over, flat front trucks all over US highways. Kenworth made the K100. Peterbilt made the 352. International, Freightliner, and White Motor Company all built cab-over models, and they sold. They competed. They were real commercial choices made by major carriers. The long-nose conventional design did not dominate American trucking because it was always preferred. It dominated because something changed. That something was not engineering. It was not a breakthrough in aerodynamics or driver comfort. The change happened in a single year, by a single mechanism, and it had nothing to do with what engineers wanted. But that is only half the story. The real answer involves math, specifically the math of a tape measure, and the question of exactly where you put the end of it. Here's the measurement that changed everything. In the United States, federal law governs the length of the trailer, the cargo box being pulled behind the truck. The current standard, protected on the interstate highway system, is 53 feet. The tractor, the part with the engine, the cab, and the driver, is not included in that federal measurement. It can be as long as the manufacturer builds it. The law simply does not count it. In Europe, The law works differently. The European Union sets a maximum length for the entire combination, tractor and trailer together. That limit is 18.75 meters, which works out to roughly 61.5 feet. Everything counts. Every inch of cab, every inch of nose, every inch of hood is part of that total, and that eats into the space that could otherwise carry cargo. Now do the math. A typical American conventional tractor, the long nose design, adds roughly 20 to 22 feet of length before the trailer even begins. In the United States, that's irrelevant. The trailer can still be 53 feet. You get 53 feet of cargo, regardless of how long the cab extends in front. In Europe, that same 20-foot cab leaves approximately 41 feet for the trailer. Compare that to a cab-over design, which positions the driver directly over the front axle and uses almost none of the total allowable length on cab structure. A European cab-over tractor adds perhaps 5 to 6 feet before the trailer starts. That recovers 14 to 15 feet of cargo space per trip. At scale, that number is devastating. 15 feet of lost cargo space, roughly 2 to 3 standard pallets on every single load, every single trip, across every truck in a fleet, adds up. For a carrier running 1,000 trucks, that's millions of dollars of lost freight capacity every year, not because of a mechanical problem, because of where the tape measure starts. So European manufacturers built flat front designs because the law made a long hood economically unthinkable. That's the core answer. But it immediately raises a deeper question. Why do the laws differ? And why did America not adopt the same total length approach? Because here is the part most people do not know. The United States did have overall length limits. Before the 1980s, many states in the United States restricted the total combination, cab and trailer together, in ways that looked a great deal like Europe. Cab-over trucks competed on American roads precisely because those limits made a long hood expensive. Something happened that changed the measurement, something specific on a specific date with a specific cause. American trucks used to look like European trucks, and they disappeared almost overnight. The story starts with the Interstate Highway System. When President Eisenhower signed the Federal Aid Highway Act in 1956, it launched the construction of 41,000 miles of controlled access roads designed in part around military logistics. Wide lanes, gentle curves, long on-ramps, controlled intersections. These were roads engineered for large vehicles moving fast across very long distances, through a country where very long distances were simply what existed between cities. But the legal framework for truck dimensions was still being negotiated state by state. Throughout the 1960s and into the 1970s, many states in the United States maintained overall combination length limits, total cab plus trailer, that ranged from about 55 to 65 feet. Sound familiar? Those limits look a lot like Europe's 18.75 meters. And during that period, cab-over trucks competed directly with conventional designs on American roads. The Kenworth K100, the Peterbilt 352, the White Road Commander, these were serious commercial trucks, not novelties, used by major carriers precisely because they maximized trailer space within the tighter total length limits. Then came 1982. The Surface Transportation Assistance Act was passed by Congress to standardize freight movement across state lines. Among its most consequential provisions, states receiving federal highway funds were required to allow 48-foot semi-trailer combinations on the interstate highway system. The trailer got federally protected at 48 feet, later expanded to 53 feet. The critical detail was the measurement counted the trailer. The tractor was simply outside the equation. The effect was almost immediate. Once a 48-foot and then a 53-foot trailer was federally guaranteed regardless of state, a 20-foot conventional tractor stopped being a liability. It was now legally free length. Manufacturers shifted production, carriers shifted purchasing. Conventional long-nosed trucks were genuinely more comfortable, easier to maintain, and at the longer highway distances that the interstate network made standard, more aerodynamic. By the early 1990s, cab overproduction for the U.S. market had effectively ended. Kenworth stopped making them for American buyers. Peterbilt stepped back. Freightliner's U.S. cab over line disappeared. A design that had competed for 30 years became economically obsolete within a decade, not because anyone decided to retire it, but because a single legislative act changed what the tape measure counted. Europe never had that moment. European road networks with older infrastructure, denser cities, mountain passes, and medieval town centers built long before the automobile never accommodated the same total vehicle lengths. The overall combination limit stayed strict. The cab over stayed rational. And here's what that history means for something you did this morning, without thinking about it. Every time you walk into a grocery store, you are looking at the downstream consequence of a law passed before most people watching this were born. The American 53-foot trailer became the organizing unit of United States domestic freight. Warehouses were built around it. Loading docks were designed to fit it. Pallet configurations were standardized to fill it. Inventory software was written to track it. The rhythm of American retail, the delivery schedules, the stock rotation cycles, the cost per unit delivered, all of it calibrated to the trailer length that the 1982 law made federally standard and protected. When you see a full shelf of food at a grocery store, what you are actually looking at is 53 feet of trailer, efficiently unpacked. When a package arrives at your door the same day you ordered it, that speed is partly a function of fulfillment, centers spaced along interstate corridors at distances optimized for the 53-foot trailer and the conventional tractor pulling it. The entire American supply chain, its geometry, its timing, its cost structure, was built around the truck that 1982 made possible. And that truck has a long hood because the law does not count it. The hood exists because it was free. Manufacturers used that free length to make the cab comfortable, the engine accessible, and the aerodynamics efficient at highway speed. The thing that looks like an aesthetic statement is actually the logical use of legally uncounted space. Meanwhile, the flat front European trucks are not a design philosophy. They are the visible shape of a different legal measurement. Every centimeter of that cab has to justify its existence within a strict total length limit. The truck that looks minimalist is maximally efficient given the constraint it is obeying. It is not humble. It is not making a statement about European practicality versus American excess. It is the shape of a rule. 2 trucks, 2 continents. One invisible difference, where you put the end of the tape. So here's where you actually land. You pulled onto the highway thinking you were looking at 2 different design philosophies. American preference for size and power. European preference for efficiency and clean lines. But what you were actually looking at was a tape measure applied in 2 different places. In the United States, to the trailer, and in Europe, to everything. That long hood isn't a style choice. It's legally invisible. The law doesn't count it, so manufacturers made it comfortable, aerodynamic, and spacious. The flat European front isn't a statement of practicality. Every millimeter earns its keep within a total length limit that never changed. Before 1982, American highways had both designs competing side by side. Flat front trucks were standard commercial choices for major carriers. Then one law changed the measurement. Within a decade, a design that had operated on United States roads for 30 years was gone. Not because engineers decided it was inferior, because the rule changed what inferior meant. The next time you see a big rig on the highway, you're not looking at a preference. You're looking at the physical shape of a legal measurement. The truck is exactly as long as the law allows, no more, no less, on both sides of the Atlantic. And if you think one piece of legislation could reshape an entire trucking fleet, wait until we get into why that trailer is exactly 53 feet long, and how that specific number connects to the dimensions of every shipping container sitting in every port in the world right now.